welcome to this Facebook Live. On the topic of implementing useful strategies, I created a video on daily habits, heroic habits, and someone said, I struggle so much to implement things that I know will help me. So in this session, we're going to explore what can be stopping you from implementing strategies that you know are going to help you, and what can help you become a positive action taker without giving yourself a hard time when you do slip up occasionally. So if you're watching live, do say hi. If you're watching the replay, just put hashtag replay. Do leave a comment, do like, do share if you find the video helpful, then others can see it. Why is it important to implement those strategies? Well, obviously, if we know there are things that we can do and we're not doing them, that can just lead to frustration. We can see our goals, but we kind of feel that we're not moving towards those goals. And that was me at one point when I had ME/CFS. There were definitely things that I realised I could be doing that I wasn't. So do you relate to that? Do put a comment in the chat if you recognise that is something that resonates. So when we get this right, we can feel good that we are starting to take action on a regular basis. That feels good. And we can see, if you keep a little record of how often, for instance, you meditated daily, then that feels good when you start to see what you've done. And you also start to feel good when you experience the benefits of those habits and strategies. So the big idea is that there are strategies that can make a difference. If you just joined, do feel free to say hi in the chat, say where you are. So what's an example for you? What is something you know you could do that will support your body's healing, but you feel like you're not doing it consistently at the moment? So feel free to put a message in the chat. For me, one thing was around bedtime, having a regular bedtime. Another thing was using a timer when I was doing activity, because I would always tend to want to keep going when I was doing something, and I did have energy, and that often resulted in me overdoing it. And also, one of the things I realised I could have been doing was scheduling on time, but when the timer went off, to make sure I had some off time. So actually actively took some time out, just did some meditation or relaxation, whatever I needed to do. There's a difference between knowing something, and a lot of people have a lot of knowledge, but implementing it is another whole another ball game. A lot of us have information, we know what we could be doing, but we're not implementing. And some people are really great at collecting information, and some people are really great at taking whatever information they've got and actually implementing it. And that's something, I used to have lots of ideas in my head, but I wasn't actually taking action. And in order to get good at implementing strategies that are going to help us, I think there's 3 levels that we need to consider in terms of what's stopping us and what can help. And the first level is a behavioural level. Okay, so I have made some videos on habits. If you check out my YouTube channel, I've just created a playlist on habits and routines, so check them out. But a few pointers around creating and establishing habits. According to research, it takes about 66 days to form a new habit on average. That's not always the case. For instance, if you get a new mobile phone, how long does it take you before you start using the new mobile phone and putting the old one to one side? It doesn't take very long. If you want to establish a habit, a really good strategy is to start small. So for instance, if someone says, I want to practice meditation, to just do it for 1 minute and to do it at the same time, because then we get into a habit. One of the habits that I've been working on is meditating when I wake up first thing for about 10 minutes, and doing some meditation when I actually get into bed, before I fall asleep. I know that whenever I go to a meditation class, my sleep is always better. So that's something that I've been instituting. Okay, so that's kind of the behavioral thing, working on habits. Second thing is working on the kind of psychological level of things. So paying attention to our thinking and our feelings, because motivation can actually help us establish strategies. However, there is a pain-pleasure relationship. Let's go to my slides and explain that. So, for instance, we are very motivated as human beings to avoid pain and experience pleasure. And what this means is that sometimes our strategies for experiencing pleasure might be great in the short term, but they're not so good in the long term. So an example of that, let's say someone, whenever they get upset, they want to eat chocolate cake and other sweet things. And what they're doing is they're focusing on the short-term pleasure of eating chocolate cake, sugary stuff, but they're ignoring the long-term pain of doing that. The fact that it causes inflammation in the body, causes weight gain, and obviously the inflammation can just compound other issues, especially if you've got a health issue. And the helpful behavior might involve some discomfort and pain in the short term and some benefit, some pleasure in the long term. But what we do is we ignore the long-term pleasure that we'll get from doing the helpful behavior because we're not getting an instant reward. So, for instance, if someone says, oh, well, actually, maybe I could do journaling when I feel upset, that's not going to give you an instant reward. You're not going to feel good in the same way that you feel good when you're eating chocolate cake. But in the long term, not eating cake and doing journaling instead might mean that you've got better health, a slimmer body. So what we need to do is shift our focus so that we start to not focus on the short-term pleasure, but on the long-term pain of doing that unhelpful behavior. And shifting the focus on the helpful behavior, so we're not focusing so much on the discomfort of doing the helpful behavior in the short term. We're focusing on the long-term benefit of doing those things. So the third thing is kind of what I call more spiritual outlook. Now, what I mean by this, it's not to do with religion or whatever. It's more to do with our outlook, the way we experience the world and our beliefs. This is about our emotions. So I have made some videos on solving the ME/CFS puzzle, and I talk about the relationship between emotions, thoughts, and feelings. If you want to check out those videos, if you're watching on YouTube, find the playlist and look for the Solving the ME/CFS Puzzle playlist, and you can work your way through those videos. If you're on Facebook, you can join my Facebook group. In the guide section, there's the same series of videos that I'm adding to each week. What I'd like you to consider is that when we experience trauma, particularly at a young age, it impacts on our beliefs about ourselves and our kind of outlook. It's the difference between someone who's operating from a place of fear and someone who's operating from a place of trust. They're going to be having very different experiences. But if we have beliefs that have formed as a result of trauma, then that can result in us self-sabotaging. And if we're experiencing trauma, there's a strong need for pleasure, to move away from the pain. Okay, what happens is we experience trauma, we experience pain. In that situation, we're not feeling connected, we're not feeling safe, we're not feeling loved, and we can create beliefs. I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, and that can lead us to self-sabotaging. So if we have a belief, we tend to behave in ways that reinforces that belief and validates that belief. So we develop strategies, as I said. Well, one strategy might be our strategy for dealing with pain is to adopt behaviours that give us some relief in the instant moment. For instance, eating chocolate cake when upset. Problem is, it doesn't heal the wounds. And in order to heal the pain, we need to heal those wounds. And when we heal those wounds, then it is possible that we can express that compassion, that self-love towards ourselves. We develop new beliefs. And therefore, it's easier to adopt habits and behaviors because we look to behave in ways that validate our beliefs. And when I work with clients, this is what we work on. We work on identifying the beliefs that formed as a result of some trauma and shifting that belief to remembering that actually, we are lovable, we are good enough, and we can and deserve to nurture ourselves and work on behaviors that support that belief. It's a big topic, but for now, what I'd like you to consider, the one things I do is work with people's mindset. So I teach clients strategies for success. I'll share one strategy right now. And one is to condition yourself that when you don't hit targets, when you don't do that strategy that you know will support you in moving forward, it's really important that we're compassionate towards ourselves. And I talk about this strategy that I learned from this coach that I'm working with at the moment called needs work. We just say, okay, this needs work. This is an opportunity for growth. And we just work on those strategies. And when we hit our targets, we celebrate them, no matter how small they are. So if someone meditates for 1 minute, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, then they celebrate it. Little fist bump. And it's those small wins that can help us move forward. There's research that shows that. Any comments? What are the areas where you recognise you could just adopt a strategy? What is one thing that you could focus on? And what specifically are you going to do? What are you going to do? When are you going to do it? I'd like you to consider that there are strategies that can make a difference. And it's really important that we just take steps to implement them. Knowing what we should be doing and doing it are two different things. If you've got any questions you want to send me, do feel free to send me a message. Send me a private message on Facebook, or if on YouTube, go to my banner and you can click a link to get in touch. Colleen says, so well explained. I like the idea of meditating in the AM prior to starting my day. Yeah, I just thought that's a really easy win. When I wake up, sometimes I feel like, actually, I just want to stay in bed for a while. But I'm awake enough that just doing some meditation would be a really nice thing to do. It's a nice start to the day. And as I say, doing it at the end of the day as well is quite a nice practice. So, if there are no other questions, we will pause there and we could do a brief relaxation if you like that. So make yourself comfortable, ensure your hands and arms, legs and feet are in a comfortable position. You may want to uncross your legs. But just ensure that you're comfortable. And I'd invite you to, only if it's safe to do so, to close your eyes. Obviously, don't close your eyes if it's not safe to do so. What I'd like you to do is just take a breath, if it's comfortable to do so, breathing in through your nose, into your belly, and out your nose again. Just take another deep breath in, slowly breathing in to your belly, slowly breathing out. And if you allow the out-breath just to be a bit longer than the in-breath, then you're activating the parasympathetic state. Like just to bring your awareness to your surroundings. Just having a sense of the things around you, colours and shapes and textures. Just have that sense of your environment. Now, just bring your awareness to any sounds you hear. Just noticing sounds that are close by, sounds in the distance. And you can just let those sounds that you don't need to pay attention to wash over you. I'd like you to consider that when you allow your mind and body to relax, soften and let go, you're creating some space. When we slow our mind down, we can be more in tune with our intuition. We can intuit what would be useful for us to be doing, what steps we can take just to support the body's healing. We might establish some routines. On this course I'm doing with this chap called Brian Johnson, they talk about AM bookends and PM bookends. So thinking about what are the routines I'm going to establish at the beginning of the day to ensure I have a good start to the day. I know for me that just spending that time doing some meditation and getting up, having a drink and going straight into doing some exercise really works for me, as long as I don't need to eat anything straight away. And I also find that having routines at the other end of the day, what time I turn my tech off, what time I finish eating, and what time I go to bed. All these things are going to make a difference to how I feel the next day. So I'd like to invite you just to spend time allowing your mind and body to relax. And just see what comes up. What strategies you might choose to implement. You might just implement one at a time. might decide that you can do 3. Once you've established those, you can choose something else to focus on. I'd like you to consider that you have insights and wisdom, and the next step is just to implement, to take action. I wonder what action you're going to take first. So you can ponder that question. You don't need to come up with an answer right now. It would be interesting to see what action you take. Feel free to let me know. As I say, if you've got any questions, get in touch. If you found this video helpful, do comment, like and share. But for now, I'll say thanks for watching, wishing you great health, and bye for now.